Okay, hey, welcome to another episode of On the Wrist from Off the Cuff. Today I have a really cool review for you from the brand RZE. A little bit about them. They're a newer micro brand upstart where the founder was essentially a key designer for another popular micro and has now set out on his own to create a new vision from the ground up. In terms of the type of watch, this is a dive watch. Some key characteristics and styling when you're looking at a diver. Of course, water resistance, typically some type of screw down crown. You're going to want something that's tough, legible, with a dive time bezel, and a diver's extension is always nice if on bracelets. This is their new for 2023 Endeavour model, and it has been updated. This is the Yulong colorway, and it is essentially designed for the serious diver, whether it be desk or deep diving. The Endeavour is crafted from solid ultra hex coated titanium, and it's built to withstand the toughest conditions. It's reliable, versatile, and incredibly lightweight. It's the ideal watch for the everyday adventurer. It's also available on this titanium bracelet featuring the new buckle, which allows for on-the-fly adjustments, and of course that premium hexa flex strap is also available. This is nice for those gritty, grimy kind of rinse and repeat adventures. This will actually be going for $549. This is currently in a pre-order depending on where you're watching this, but they do expect to ship very shortly here in June. I'm filming this in April. So with all that said, let's go ahead, zoom the camera out, get this piece in hand, and take a closer look. Okay, you gotta love the titanium goodies, guys. Titanium watch, titanium flashlight, titanium pen, recently reviewed here on the channel. So definitely take a look. Branded RZE. This is actually made for RZE by Big Idea Design, who are very big within that space. But this is a really cool pen, so hey, why not have it play the backdrop? This light, I actually haven't obviously I carry a lot of different stuff and you guys have seen it on my Instagram, but I haven't really done too many flashlight reviews. This is an amazing one that honestly, like, after you have this, you kind of don't need anything else. It's this really great Lumen top. It's the FWAA, and it's really good. I recommend it. And if you guys want some of that content in here, let me know if that's something that you're craving. I'll definitely consider it. Of course, Sebenza, small Sebenza 31. This is a sprint run, so this isn't the Magna Cut steel. This is actually just S35, but it would be nice to get one in Magna Cut because that is just a great steel. But this has the nice glass blasted finish, which is a newer offering from Chris Reeve, and I gotta say it's like, now that they offer this, is just be the standard because it is impeccable. So now down to the watch itself. This is a new one, guys. This absolutely is very, very cool. So it looks very familiar, except check out that dial. They went for a Glacier kind of effect, and honestly it looks really good. It reminds me a little bit of the Grand Seiko white birch formation. Also, if you turn it this way, it looks a little bit like kind of waves and whatnot too. So very, very cool. It's nice to see this type of aesthetic and these types of little details trickling down to some very affordable watches. Again, $549. That's pretty outstanding. So that is one of the new features. Also, guys, new feature. Check this out. I mean, I don't even want to wait on this. I just want to let you guys know, because I know this is such a requested feature on so many other models. Again, you find these brands that are run by true enthusiasts and they listen. Check it out. Fully milled. There's no holes here for manual micro adjust because it has its everything underneath. It is ratcheting, so you can push to lock it down. You basically press this button here and it pulls it out, and there's a good amount of range on there. It has about 4 positions. Let's try it. Yep, 4 positions. And for me, I think I'm about maybe, no, I think 1 click. I'm about 3 clicks, I think, to get it really comfortable for me. But that's exciting. This right here, game changer. So now that RZE has this, expect to try to get this thing on every one you can. Honestly, I know that the owner of RZE is thrilled about how this came out, and he absolutely should. Let's check that out. Nice little detail assembled for adventure. Very, very cool. All right, so now back into kind of the overview. So 40.5 millimeters in diameter. That's including the crown guards though. So technically, if you measure like from 2 to 8 o'clock, it's actually closer to about 39.5. So this is actually a very, very wearable size for most folks. 12.5 millimeters thick with 46 millimeters lug to lug, all titanium matte blasted in this ultra hex coating, of course, on top, which is up to about 1200 Vickers, or 8 times stronger than stainless steel. And of course, it's titanium, so you know that it's much lighter than stainless steel as well. So the crystal is back again, and also still in sapphire with their super AR coating, just meaning that they applied a lot of layers to it. So of course, if I get it right there on the studio lights, it's gonna show that reflection. But you can see here now, like, it does an amazing job, because there's a lot of times if there's no AR coating, you can kind of see the reflection of the entire studio that we're in here recording this. And here you really can't. It's very faint, and it's just like, okay, the outline of a light. So the AR coating is impeccable, and you're going to want that because you're going to want to take advantage of this dial. Goodness, look at the depth. That is extremely cool. It plays with the light in an amazing way, guys. And the way the colors hit, you can see right there, it just gives you so many different ranges of tone within this. I'd say I'd consider this kind of a teal. It's definitely a little bit more green in person than you're probably seeing on the camera. It tends to kind of make things look a little bit blue. But here, let me give it a quick wipe real quick here. Get it back, and let's continue, guys. So if you have 120 click unidirectional, ooh, yes, rotating bezel, guys. A really good rotating bezel on a titanium watch, it's hard to come by. Typically you're paying big bucks for that. I will say, normally, I think that's probably one of the great things about RZE, is because they really do love titanium. It's not like the titanium is another version that they've just had to re-engineer from a steel variation, right? These are all meant to be titanium, so they have to be dialed in, you know, right up front from the design into execution from the ground up. And this is nice. There's a little bit of back play you can see there that can wiggle out, but it's really nice. It's clicky, but also quite smooth, and it's really easy to turn, which I like. But it's not, you're not going to accidentally turn it, you know. One finger, it's not going to probably grip it enough unless you really try to apply. So that's a nice thing. You're not going to accidentally bump this or anything like that, and you know, lose any time for that you're tracking via this side. Now, the crown is signed and screwed down, which looks great. It's that, you know, RZE logo. The back, of course, is solid and closed there. And, you know, that comes into contact with the back of your wrists. So it's nice that it's nice and smooth. It's hiding inside of it a very reliable workhorse Seiko automatic. It's a Seiko Instruments NH35A, so we're all very aware of that. It's kind of, if you want hacking and hand winding, as well as you know, decent shock resistance, that's what you're going to probably want if you were making a watch today. Also, the hand winding is a lot more pleasurable than you would get from, like, let's say an 8000 series Miyota that does offer hacking, because some of the newer ones do. Now, of course, that does help keep the cost down as well. And honestly, for such a robust watch, it's one of those things that you're okay with it. I know I am. So getting into the dial hands and lume, of course, this dial has this beautiful glacier texture on it. It has applied indices. It has matted out hands there that are going to capture light and reflect it slightly, but nothing too crazy, which is very nice and suits the overall matte aesthetic. It does have a date window at 3 o'clock with a color matched disc. My goodness, just what us enthusiasts ask for. It's at 3 o'clock, which is traditional. It is framed really nicely and it's color matched. So I mean, what else can you ask for? And then you get to the Lume. It's Swiss Superluminova C3, and then there also are BGW9 accents. I think if you look at this here, you can probably guess which ones are C3, slightly green tint, and which ones are going to be BGW9, slightly blue tint or white in appearance in daylight. This has 200 meters of water resistance or 20 atmospheres, so absolutely ready to do the job from that perspective. You do have a 20 millimeter lug width, drilled lugs. Everything is solid, and it is screw in terms of the connectors, and you can see these H-links are nice. And one thing, they're short. Two, they are also really well articulated, so that is another nice thing there. And then of course back to the clasp. I love the toolless micro, and here's another thing, it doesn't take up too much room. It's still nice and slender. You can see there, it doesn't seem out of proportion, out of place. This is a really nice one, especially considering this is the first one they did. I'm not sure if there's going to be any feedback to say, hey, you know, change anything about it, because it is long enough to where it's going to help you scissor this open to fit over your hand good, but not overly long. It has a nice curve without being too curved. And, you know, it just doesn't seem, again, not overly long, still well within that lug to lug distance there for the clasp body. And then the folding section as well is even under. So that is very nice. And then of course this nice subtle curvature, which is going to help with comfort. And then of course ultimate comfort coming from this clasp. So you can pull it all the way out, and you can see that's not technically locked though. So I guess if you wanted to, you could consider that another position. You get that much give, but that's really the first click there. And then if you want to, of course, you count the clicks. So now I know that I have one click left before it's the fourth one that closes it. And then that will be for the right size for my wrist. So with that said, let's actually get it on the wrist and see how it wears. Okay guys, as you can see on my 7.5-inch wrist, this wears really, really well, nice and flat. Check that out. Great angles. That matte surface really plays with light in a very different way than your typical satin brush or polish. Which does add, you know, a nice little bit of visual flavor to it. But of course, if I bring my wrist too close to the camera, you're going to see a lot of lens distortion. It's going to appear a little bit bigger than it actually is. So what I'll do is I'll keep my wrist down here and I'll tighten up the shot so you guys can get just a bit of a truer aspect ratio of how this is going to lay, while not, of course, you know, ignoring some of those finer details. And you can see, wow. That is a looker. And the nice thing is, not only does it look cool, it's actually great to engage with because of the, oh, it's a little out of focus there. Camera's wanting to read field notes. So a really nice aspect of it is that it's, you know, of course designed really well, but it actually is great to interact with. So in terms of the tactile engagement of this bezel, very nice. The crown, very nice. Actuating the buttons on the clasp. It's all very nice and tidy, which I can appreciate. It's something that, you know, this watch is meant to be kind of, you know, lived in and worn out, you know, adventured with. So I do like that, of course, some of those finer aspects that maybe you can overlook for a dressier watch. You get it here. There's not unfinished sharp stuff. You know, the buttons are really well done. Look at this. Let's look at the buttons on here just real quick. Look at these nicely rounded buttons. Broken edge on there. Really nice. You can still see real clean bevel. So this is really nice. Wears well, of course, like you would expect for titanium. It's going to wear on the lighter side. So, you know, maybe not the big hefty baller platinum type of feel you might be looking for, if that's what floats your boat. But if you're looking for something that feels substantial but also, you know, purposefully lightweight, this is something that you might get a lot of enjoyment out of. So with that said, let's set up for some Lume shots, low light transition, and closing thoughts. Okay, let's go ahead and hit the lights here. As you can see, this is a dive watch, no excuses. You're getting great lume. You're also getting some nice differentiation there by having the twin colors, which is great. You can get, you know, your cardinal points there. You know where 12 o'clock is, and not just because right now the bezel is set there. You have that nice 12 o'clock point, and you do get that extra play of blue. You get a little bit of extra pops of blue here and there for orientation, which I think is really, really smart. Now, one thing I always do like to work in to these Lume shots is a little bit of low light transition, because you're not always going to be out in the middle of a field enjoying direct sunlight. Sometimes you can find yourself coming in and out of buildings, walking underneath overhangs, maybe hanging out underneath the shade of a tree, or just spending some time in your favorite automobile. So it's nice to see what these colors, textures, and finishes render like in less than optimal lighting, to maybe even include some harsh lighting, which typically could expose any types of production defects. But you can see, of course, that matte blasted finish is nice and evenly applied there. And I will say that the coating on there does, you know, help it actually not look super, super dark. So that's another nice feature of the particular coating that they use here. Not only is it strong, it also does look pretty darn nice, because typically a blasted titanium surface is going to render much darker, as you can see by comparison to the pen there, that RZE pen, which is stone washed and has a much darker vibe to it. But you can see this is still ultimately legible even in this really dim lighting. I like that you can even see the bezel and everything. It just kind of pops still. And then also, even though it is fully matte, it's not dull. Yes, it's matted, but when I say dull, it's not dull to look at, because the light still has a lot of play because of all of the beautiful angles that are on this particular piece. So this one is definitely a lot of fun. All right, guys, closing thoughts on the wrist. Perfect Goldilocks sizing, super lightweight without feeling insubstantial or cheap. You know, it does take some getting used to, don't get me wrong. You might pick it up and might think it's made out of wood at first, but that's just, you know, you kind of get used to it with titanium timepieces. The nice thing is, since it does have that mechanical automatic movement, you still have a good amount of heft there. Now, in terms of model variants, definitely check the site for current availability, as there are quite a few variations. Some, of course, with this Glacier style dial, some without. I think the way to go is with this dial, just because it just adds a little extra level of complexity, and it's appreciated. I think it looks cool. So in terms of compare models, of course, although, you know, this is a very highly competitive space, right? This thing costs $549, so about $550, still right around the $500 mark, well under $1,000. That's a highly competitive space. But in terms of the fact that they are using titanium with a hard coating in this space, you know, it's really kept it in a real class of its own. So now that they're adding these new dial options with these great details and depth, as well as these, like, you know, pretty perfect on the first run micro adjusting clasps, toolless micro adjusting clasps at that, you know, it really just jumps out, which is great. Good for them. And I will say that the owner of RZE is totally a nice, genuine guy who's a commercial pilot, you know, in his kind of day job, and this is just really a passion play for him. So I've even joined their Facebook groups and whatnot, just like I do with a couple of other micro brands, and it's always good to kind of see how enthusiastic the fan bases can be about supporting these pieces, this design language, you know, from these makers. So for me, guys, bottom line, the RZE Endeavour is a modern, fully loaded titanium dive watch that does everything you need it to, and that's honestly tough enough to take anything you can throw at it. So If you enjoy the aesthetic and you like the theme of having that kind of do-all type of watch, I think that's why most people are into divers. This takes it another level, of course, being really more on the tooly side, being a true tool watch. This isn't a watch you're going to really want to dress up by any means, but hey, you know, if Zins can sell an all matte that are all business and people can wear those with pride, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to enjoy this in a very similar way. So with that said, let me know what you guys do think in the comments below. If you like the video, please do a like, and if you haven't already, please do subscribe for more content just like this. Thanks, guys.